From Yarm to Yibby, Harrington to Horsley Hill, Swalwell to Silverlink. Steve and Rye, the North East Footy Breakfast.
Right across the North East, the Red, the Toon and the Cat.
Had to start this way, didn't we?
Banger!
What a start! Oh,
Tell
yes.
you what, I was on that train yesterday listening to you. Oh, tell you what, boys. I just wanted to be there with all three of you in, but this morning the boys are back in town.
The boys are back. Look at us all. Back here, bushy-tailed, blurry-eyed. The gang is back.
Listen to him talking over Phil Lynott. How dare you? How dare you, sir? That man is a god. Phil Lynott, I mean, not right.
All right, okay. As long as you got that right, that's the main thing. As long as you got it right. So
crazy as well as people would be tuning in now, listening to us before we were number one hit Christmas. Christmas like royalty. Do you know what I mean? Before we were famous on that Christmas one banger. So people tuning in now are getting the pre-fame versions of us four. You know what I mean?
That's it.
Boys, you're already in the presence of fame. I mean, I went to London yesterday and the blooming king turned out. You know, he gets in his gold coach and comes to see me.
Did he say a long time listener, first time caller?
Oh no! I tell you what, I get off the train at King's Cross, get on the tube, get off at Westminster, where I was going, and like all the flags are out. All the regalia is there. You know, there are crowds on the street. They've put all the barriers out. I'm thinking, fantastic. This show really does have power.
Made it.
And then someone went,
behind.
Somebody says, no, mate, sorry, it's the King's speech in Parliament. And it just burst my bubble completely. But, you know, I'll claim the King turned out to see me.
I was waiting for the jingle to be the North East Brekky show with Dave. With Dave and guests. It'll be Dave and guests.
Dave and Charles. Yeah.
Oh, dear doctor.
Dave and others.
Well, I don't know, fellas. I don't know when Daz is in charge. I don't know how far he lets you roam off the straight and narrow. So did you discuss this at all?
Wake up with the three legends, Steve, and Steve, on the North East Footy Breakfast.
Love it.
Did you discuss it all yesterday or not?
We did, but then my lawyers got involved and said that I'm not allowed to talk about it or advise until the lawyers are done.
That was great.
They'll be in touch.
That was great for me last week. I mean, to be honest, I had virtually the whole week. Me and Dave had the whole week.
I know, mate. I missed you. I was sitting there in the maternity ward listening to my mate talking by himself. Couldn't believe it. You needed a bit of rhyme, mate.
Hang on.
I had to do the notes. I had to do the notes for all the days as well. So I had to do the news headlines. I had to do. Oh dear.
Oh no, I've got to stop this show immediately in its tracks. What do you mean you were listening to your mate? There were two of us on.
Oh, well, I apologise. I thought you were my dad rather than my mate.
Sacked in the morning. You're getting sacked in the morning.
This is Ted's
This
fault.
morning ain't over yet.
This is Ted's fault. This is completely Ted's fault. Because you came out with the phrase radio dad and it's just continued.
I'm not even sorry. No, I'm not. I was about to apologise. Just like I'm supposed to apologise to Rye, I said something mean in the headlines the other day. I think it was on Monday.
You did.
That I regarded Nectarius Triantis as everyone's favourite Australian. Then I apologised and said he was the second behind Paul Hogan. So at some stage I am going to have to put that right. And, I apologise, Rye.
You're working back up, mate. You're back on the Christmas card list now. Don't you worry, mate. Don't you worry. I love you. Love having all the boys together. It's such a good feeling when we're all together.
What on earth have we unleashed on the North East, I'm asking?
You mentioned about the Christmas song, right?
Oh, yeah.
About the Christmas song. I'm trying to get in the recording studio this weekend and actually lay down a guide.
I love it. Mate, I'm banking on it. I am banking on it. Your boys have to go back to work to get more money. We've got a new baby in the house. I need the tour money.
I know we were saying we were going to give all the profits to charity, but let's keep it.
Charities have got enough. It's Christmas, they're all collecting.
Steve's gone very quiet here. Steve,
So
Steve.
Rye's got an extra bub charity fund.
And Steve there with his equity cards thinking, how on earth can I let myself be associated with these idiots?
You are a bit quiet, mate. Did something happen overnight? Something in German?
You need to talk to me agent, lads, I'm afraid. That's what you have to do when you get me involved in this. Yes. I mean, we've gone 6 minutes without mentioning it. But
Go on, then, let's
Newcastle-
go. 7 actually.
Newcastle United did get beat last night off Borussia Dortmund, who did the double over Newcastle. The injury hit squad. It's finally caught up with us, unfortunately.
It has.
Callum Wilson, unfortunately, going off at half time with a strain of his hamstring, which I guess we hate the international breaks on here, but for me it can't come soon enough because it gives us a couple of weeks off to try and recharge the batteries, get a couple of players back who ultimately we're going to need going into the Christmas run in. But yeah, look, I make no bones about it. I said yesterday that I felt Newcastle could probably get a draw out of yesterday's game. It looked as if we probably could when Joe Linton had that nailed on header. All he needed to do was get it on target, and that would have been 1-1. But unfortunately, we just couldn't find a way past the Germans' rear guard. They did very, very well last night. They did exactly what they did to us at St James's Park. They kept it tight at the back, and they got us on the counter. And Newcastle. I don't think. I think 2-0 was probably a fair reflection on the game. They had to push on. They had to attack. You can give Newcastle credit for giving it a go last night in an 81,000 seater stadium with everyone against you more or less. And I just felt that. It was a learning curve for Newcastle. There was so many young players on the pitch last night who got the opportunity to sample something they probably wouldn't have dreamt of 12 months ago.
Yeah.
I mean,
were you surprised with the lineup, Steve?
No, because we haven't got anybody else to play, mate. I mean,
the only one for me was Livramento.
I made the joke last week. I made the joke last week about potentially supporters having to play because that's how bad our injury list is getting. Eddie Howe going into the crowd looking to see if there's anybody capable of kicking the ball around.
Graham Souness in the game. Graham Souness wants to put his boots on.
But you know what? It was I thought the lineup was the only one he could really put out. I thought he had to have some kind of surprises on the bench. He had to have Gordon and Almira on there because clearly we know Wilson is always carrying. He's always going to be carrying a potential injury. I thought giving Livramento and Hall a chance to impress in the Champions League was the right thing, especially after that performance against Manchester United last week. I thought Tino was man of the match. I thought he was outstanding. He was asked to play right back. He was asked to play right midfield. He was asked to play left back last night. They changed the formation 3 times. He didn't look out of place in any of those positions. And he was up against some really good players last night, and I think he bossed every position he played in. So if we could have had 3 Tino Livramentos on the pitch last night, we might have got a result. But I don't think anybody let us down. I don't think anybody performed below par. Joe Linton will be kicking himself that he didn't score that goal. That could have turned things. It's ifs and buts, but had that goal gone in, then Newcastle might have had their tails up and might have gone on to win it. That's football, though.
It was a great chance as well, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. The group of death, though, as I said right at the start of the Champions League, journey, will live up to its reputation because of the teams in it. And the fact that AC Milan beat PSG last night, when everyone felt that PSG were going to win and they were going to cruise themselves into the next stage. Look at that table now, lads. Newcastle have gone from top to bottom in 2 games. But if you look at that table now, it's wide open. And, I wouldn't want to call that now. Obviously, Dortmund sitting top at the moment on 7 points. Paris Saint-Germain in second place on 6. Milan in third place on 5 points. And Newcastle in fourth on 4 points. Newcastle have to go to Paris Saint-Germain next. They've already beaten them 4-1. They're already beaten them 4-1. Who's to say Newcastle can't go to Paris and do exactly the same? If they've got a few players back, they've got a few, they've got that opportunity to go there and get something, and they know they've got to get something. Who's to say that Newcastle couldn't go there and get something from Paris Saint-Germain? But it's such an exciting end. And if Newcastle can go there and get a point, let's say they get a point, so Newcastle would then be on 5 points. Paris Saint-Germain would be on 7 points. And
Yep.
Milan, let's say Dortmund beat Milan, which is possible. So then you've got such an exciting end game because Milan have to come to Newcastle. Newcastle, against Milan at St James's Park for potentially a place in the next round into the knockout stages, or for a place in the Europa. That's a cup final in itself. So it's wide open, lads. It's wide open. It's not doom and gloom. I think the Newcastle fans conducted themselves well again abroad, which is always a big thing. We always go on about it on here. It looked like everyone had a great time. A few travel issues for a lot of my mates. People going from various places and trains as they often do, letting people down. People not getting to the ground until just before kick-off, so missing out on all the pre-match fun and entertainment. But it looked like a great trip for everybody, which is all you can ask for. But yeah, the group of death's wide open, lads, and I just hope that by the time we get to play PSG after that international break, that we've got a few players back, a few who've had that opportunity to get themselves out of the sick bay, and hopefully gives us an opportunity to at least give PSG a game when we go out there.
I mean, Eddie was pretty flat. He sounded pretty flat after the game as well. I think, it's the first time I've why talk about it? Let's have a listen to him. This is his reaction immediately after the game.
Yeah, tough defeat for us. I don't think we played to our normal level tonight. I think when you can compare our performance against Arsenal to here, we were lacking in the intensity that we showed that day. Whether the game just came a little bit too early for us, whether we hadn't fully recovered, I don't know. The group, of course, was stretched. I don't think there was a lack of commitment or effort or anything directed to the players. I thought we gave everything. We weren't at our normal level.
Eddie, it's the first time I've heard him a bit flat, so I think that's an indication of how disappointed he was. But you're right, Steve. The table, anything could happen over the next two games. I mean, you could win one, draw one, and still do it, depending on which way around it goes. But that double header now, Dortmund have the advantage, don't they? Because of the two victories. So they're always going to be a problem as this shakes out. I mean, if you can draw against PSG, beat AC Milan at home, that's possible. You could go to Paris and get a point. You could beat Milan at home, but it all depends on how Dortmund do and how they're now going to drop because they've got the head-to-head advantage.
Yeah, I mean, look,
interesting
Newcastle
to see Milan in Newcastle, right, as like the Tonali revenge. You know what I mean? Like we know AC Milan. We're not guilty. You know what I mean? We don't know. I'm not accusing anyone, but wouldn't it be like
but 52,000 mags start waving Ladbrokes receipts?
Newcastle knock AC Milan out of the Champions League to get their spot, and it's a bit like, there's your Tonali, you know what I mean? Just a little bit of something.
Yeah, there's an edge to the game.
There is.
There's an edge. There is an edge to the game. Obviously from Newcastle's point of view, they will be, quite upset at that situation. I mean, long way to go, and I guess in any investigation, Newcastle will certainly want to know the ins and outs of it. But there is an edge to that game. I think from Newcastle's perspective, though, we'll have had the Paris Saint-Germain game then, and depending on what the result is then, Newcastle could be, they could be out of the running to get to the next stages. It could be Europa. So it is a big game. It is a big game. No matter what happens, it's going to be a big game, and it could be just the end of the European journeys. And Newcastle then will just play with some freedom and have an enjoyable night. And Eddie Howe may give an opportunity to those players who haven't had a chance to have a run out. So it's I mean, long way. It's still a long way to go. We'll find out in due course where we're at. I think for me, as I said yesterday, and I've said a couple of times on NUFC Matters, that the priority for Newcastle is to qualify for the Champions League again this season and to win a trophy if they can. And if if we can focus more on the Carabao Cup and winning our place in Europe again next season, that'll do for me. But this has been a great learning curve for everybody. You're talking about a couple of players in that lineup last night, 3 possibly, who had Champions League experience before this season. This is a great learning curve for the likes of maybe Sean Longstaff, for Nick Pope, for Joe Linton, Anthony Gordon, for Lewis Miley, the list goes on. That this is a great opportunity for those players and Hall and Livramento to sample what the atmosphere is like and to feel what a big match occasion's like. And they've done it now. They've done it. They've got that in their bank, and they'll cope better the next time that they have to play in one of those games. But it's just so unfortunate. Even down to the fact that the Champions League squad, you have to pick X amount of players. You have to, pick a diverse amount of players from different sections, certain age groups, loan players, homegrown players, etc. Which means obviously that when it comes to it, players have to be omitted. So the likes of Emil Kraft and Matt Ritchie, who featured in the last couple of weeks for Newcastle, who could have added a little bit of certainly seniority to the squad last night, were unavailable because they weren't in the Champions League squad, and that in itself would have made a big difference last night had we had that. We had two goalkeepers as subs. We had Dubravka and Karius on the bench. We had Lewis Miley. We had De Ball on the bench. We had Parkinson on the bench. I mean, it was a bench full of inexperience. So yeah, it's not an excuse. We've just got to accept it. It is what it is. We've just got to make sure that we bounce back. We've got an extra day, thankfully, for the players obviously to get back, to get into training and start focusing on the Bournemouth game. The Eddie Howe derby this weekend is just as important as the game we've just played, and you've just got to hope that the players, we can get enough players out to focus on that. But I tell you what I've noticed, because we're playing in the Champions League and because we're in this group of death that we've called it, we're playing against three top teams. Dortmund just missing out on the league last season, by the smallest of margins. You're playing against Milan, who got to the semis last year. You're playing against PSG, who've got one of the world's best players in the lineup. And you're looking at those three teams, and Newcastle having to perform against them. We're coming away from 2 games against Dortmund disappointed. Of course we are. But we've just lost against this, against a team that's also got Champions League experience over the last 10, 15, 20 years. They qualify every year. They know what this level's like. What I've noticed is the game after, when Newcastle, people tend to say, oh, you never do well in the game afterwards. Newcastle have done well. Newcastle perform. They go in, and I think it's because we're playing at this higher level. We're playing against better teams, and that rubs off. You have to play at a certain level to compete against the likes of PSG. So when you're going in against Bournemouth, you're still at that level, and Newcastle have done well. So it's all a learning curve. It's a big one. We want the journey to continue. Obviously, if it doesn't, it doesn't. But at least we've been there, and then the key focus for Eddie Howe and the squad will be to regain their position in the Champions League at the end of the season. So not too downcasted. No, he's not.
Wilson done?
He just took him off as a precaution. You can't. Look, the guy's getting older. That's
what I'm saying. Is his body just starting to let him down a little bit too much?
But yeah, I mean, obviously, anybody's body gets, does that when you're playing football. Anyone will tell you that as you get older, it doesn't get any easier. So it's going to be like that for Callum Wilson, 100%. But the guy has been asked to do, so much more this season, and unfortunately on his own. He's not. They chose last night to start with Wilson up front, which is what I thought it would do, and he's ploughing a lone furrow up front against world class defenders, and it's difficult. He didn't really get a sniff last night, and his hamstrings were feeling it. Eddie Howe's took him off as a precaution. He has one eye on the Bournemouth game at the weekend. He doesn't want to be going into that with just Anthony Gordon, as his potential front man. So I think it was the right thing. It will have been disappointing for Callum Wilson. I mean, that was his first start in the Champions League last night, and it'll have been disappointing. It probably wasn't how he planned it. He would have hoped to have more game time, but Eddie Howe has to do what's right for the squad. And I thought the change didn't really change anything. I thought Almiron coming on, we had that opening 15 minutes where Almiron looked bright. He was running down the right channels. He was creating trouble on that right hand side. That little link up between because he switched it again. He moved Livramento to left back. He had Kieran Trippier on the right. That little trio of Bruno, Trippier and Almiron, which has served Newcastle well in the Premiership in the past, was creating a little bit of havoc and a bit of turmoil. We had that opportunity, which of course Joe Linton put wide. And then the Germans got a hang of it. You know, they got control. You know, they dominated the game last night, and you know, rightly so. They're the home team. They're playing in front of their home fans. They've come off the back of a 4-0 embarrassment at the weekend.
Yeah.
They had a point to prove last night, and of course, you know,
Steve, you had more possession last night.
Mad,
I
isn't
found
it?
really interesting. That I mean, I know every fan will tell you possession doesn't mean you win by goals, but looking at it last night, Newcastle 54% of the possession, while Dortmund had 46. To go to Dortmund and actually have more possession than, you know, one of the elite clubs in Europe, that takes some doing that. It's, you know, shots on target, it was 8-5 in Dortmund's favour. Passing percentage, you were actually higher than what Dortmund were as well. You had 85% passing accuracy. They were 80%. I know it's fine margins, but at the end of the day, I mean, looking at the squad that you were able to put out last night, to be able to come out with that, I think it's a positive. And looking at this group, what's really interesting about this is the two relatively, and I'm using my air quotations again, right? The two unfancied teams have actually both beaten PSG.
Yeah.
Which is AC Milan. None of us had AC Milan to win last night.
No.
And now they've pulled a rabbit out the hat there. Now, this has shown that, and obviously you guys beat them very, very convincingly. I still think.
How much does that hurt to say as a Mackem?
It's honestly, I know my sister's listening, and I'm sorry, Gillian. My phone's about to light up and going, really?
You are disowned.
I absolutely. I mean, I was already the black sheep.
Now you're the black and white sheep.
But no, it's you look at this group and you've got to look at those last two games. Rye's absolutely right. There's a little bit of needle and a little bit of a tonali derby about it, which I think, you know, AC Milan, yeah, they might be used to those kind of atmospheres, but I think if you can get a relatively fit squad out against them, and then PSG, you've got the problem. PSG would be looking at Newcastle and how to contain them, not the other way around, when it gets to Parc des Princes or wherever it is they play these days. So I don't think this group is sorted by any means yet. It just depends who you can get off the injury table and back playing again. And I'll go back there. One thing I will say, just to recover with my family, is every time I've said Newcastle are going to win, they have actually lost a game. So I am the curse. Thank you very much.
Yeah, look, it's going to be an interesting end of the group. The group of deaths lived up to its expectation. You're right about Milan. You know, they were unfancied, as were Newcastle, and you know they both had results against Paris Saint-Germain. It's quite strange. Never did I expect that at all. But it's you know, it's the magic of the Champions League. It's I just wish we'd had an opportunity to perhaps have at least a couple of more players involved last night who could have made a difference. And Alexander Isak or a Harvey Barnes would have made a difference last night. But that's just the way it goes. You're playing so many games, you're getting injuries, and we're getting beset with injuries. You know, I mean, Dan Burn, who landed badly, of course, at the weekend against Arsenal, out for 2 months. Matt Targett, who has worked so hard to get himself back into contention in Eddie Howe's squads, out for 3 months with a hamstring. It just seems every time we play a game, someone goes down. I mean, Joe Willock went down in the first minute yesterday, and everyone was like, it was hearts in your mouth time. He's just come back from not one but 2 injuries, and he goes down with a scythe and challenge to his ankle, and you're thinking, oh no, but he was okay. But yeah, it's one of those situations. I thought there was a great bit of Newcastle's game management technique as well last night, because Nick Pope went down, and people were it was rather innocuous, but then there was notes getting handed around by Eddie Howe's coach and staff, and suddenly there's a drinks break as Nick Pope gets look. There was nothing wrong with him. That was just a bit of classic Eddie Howe trying to get his notes over to the players, get a pause in the game and try and get a grip back on the game, and just little things like that they do help, they do make a difference. And I thought that was just typical Eddie Howe. But you're right. I'm listening to that interview. It's the first time I've heard the interview with Eddie Howe, because once the game finished last night, they went straight into
into beer mode.
I didn't have a drink last night, mate. I don't need a drink to watch Newcastle.
I do to watch the Borough.
But I genuinely, I just, I can genuinely hear the disappointment. I mean, look, Eddie Howe doesn't like losing games, and that's a great mantra to have. But he also wants to compete and put in performances. I would disagree in the sense that he says he didn't get the usual performance out the lads. I thought they ran themselves into the ground. I just think it's so hard for them. I think that the international break is coming at the right time for Newcastle. We do know that there's going to be players who will go away on the international break, will be selected for their teams. But a couple of players, there's certainly a few players need a little bit of R&R. They need to come in. They need to do their light training. They just need that, a chance to recharge the batteries, come back after the international break and attack the December fixtures, and go for it. We've got 2 huge games when we come back after the international break. Chelsea at home, Manchester United at home. Those two games, potential games to keep us well and truly in that chasing pack for the Champions League position. So, yeah. Focus on getting players back and ready for that, I think, is the key. And the Champions League isn't the be-all and end-all for Newcastle. It is for a lot of the fans. They want to progress. They want to get into the last 16. I think that's a kudos thing more than anything else. But for me, finishing in the Champions League positions again this season and getting to the final and hopefully winning the Carabao Cup is where I'm at. I'd love those 2 things to happen. I'd be happy with that. I think that will be a successful season for Newcastle.
Nah, not going to happen. Got to get over the hurdle of Borough, so that's not going to happen. But at least it's a nice, easy run into your next game against PSG, mate. Eddie Howe's return to Bournemouth and Chelsea at St James's. So nice, easy run into that Champions League game, Steve. Do you know something, fellas? What is it? 28 minutes past 7, and we haven't even done team news headlines.
Nope. And we're close to sport headlines.
Well, let's drop the sport headlines. Let's just do the team headlines. And seeing as
seem to do that a lot.
Seeing as I've been able to throw some Middlesbrough somehow into a Champions League conversation, we've done a lot of Newcastle. Let's start with Sunderland first.
Mackems and Proud. Black Cats News.
That way, Sunderland fans, that's enough of all that, isn't it? Too much Burr and Geordie crack going on there, isn't it? Right, Sunderland have joined Rangers and a little club called Middlesbrough in their pursuit of Hammarby defender Nathaniel Adeji, whom they want to bring into the club in January, according to the tabloids. It's been reported that all 3 clubs intend on bringing the Ghanaian in on loan in the transfer window to strengthen their ambitions for the season. Rangers reportedly sent scouts to track Ajayi last month, but his performances have alerted English clubs to his talent, and the Scottish Giants could now face some stern competition from the Black Cats and Middlesbrough, who are just above the bottom half of the championship table. Former Sunderland forward David Healy has emerged as the favourite to take over a VFL outfit Grimsby Town. Well-travelled forward in his playing days, the 44-year-old has been in charge of Linfield in his native Northern Ireland since 2015. He has led the club to 5 league titles, as well as 2 Irish Cup victories and a further 2 Irish League Cup triumphs. Grimsby are hovering precariously above the relegation zone in the 4th tier, meaning his successor will face a tough task. And finally, Luton Town have been hit with FA fines for 2 separate crowd control failures during last season's playoff semi-final second leg against Sunderland at Kenilworth Road on May the 16th. A first charge related to a push by a Luton fan on Sunderland's Ahmad in the 14th minute of the match, as the on-loan Manchester United forward tried to retrieve the ball after it got out for a throw. The Hatters were fined £3,000 after admitting a breach of Rule E21.1, with the charge stating that the club failed to ensure that spectators and or its supporters conducted themselves in an orderly fashion. The second charge related to a large-scale pitch incursion following the final whistle, in which home supporters made contact with Luton players and the manager Rob Edwards. A number ran to the weekend and goaded the Sunderland fans, and multiple pyrotechnic devices were lit. So Luton Town admitted the charges, but requested a hearing in front of an independent regulatory commission, which opted to reduce the club's total fine from £55,000 to £35,000 after hearing the club's mitigation, which included the fact that it admit the charges and its frank and genuine apology to Ahmad, to Sunderland and the Black Cats supporters. Not good enough, that fine, in my opinion, but there you go. That's my headlines.
Sounds a bit like when I got a ticket off a copper and I lived in America. You go to court and you can just they say, are you guilty? Right, what can we negotiate? It's not like 3 points and 120 quid. You sit there and
ridiculous.
They go, you turn up a court and they go, well, all right then, we'll give you 2 demerit points and $35. And it's like, well, You know, if you're guilty, you're guilty. I didn't know you could negotiate. But anyway, look, football's exactly the same.
Smoggies and Proud. Borough News.
Good morning, Borough fans. How are we all on this fantastic Wednesday? Hope you're all fantastic, safe and well. Our headlines read like this. Former Leicester City star Matt Piper thinks Middlesbrough's position in the championship table does not reflect their quality. The table's lying, he says, and warned the Foxes over their imminent clash with the Borough. On Friday night, Leicester saw their 9-match unbeaten run come to an end against Leeds United at the King Power Stadium. But the Foxes are still top of the table with 39 points from 15 games. But Piper pointed out that despite a tough start to the season, Middlesbrough have managed to beat high-profile opponents in their recent games and believes their position in the table is not the right marker of their quality. He also added that Middlesbrough are going to be a difficult challenge for Leicester and warned the Foxes that back-to-back defeats might hurt the confidence that they have built with a great start. And Zach Steffen has admitted he would have loved to have re-signed for the Borough, wouldn't we all, this summer after enjoying an awesome year on loan last season. But he says Borough's failure to win promotion all but hindered his hopes of a Riverside return. Steffen said his time on Teesside was the most enjoyable loan spell of his career, telling of his love for the beautiful area and hailing Michael Carrick for his impact after arriving as Borough's head coach. The Manchester City keeper says Smart Carrick has an instinctive awareness of what the players want and need, and was hugely impressed by the Borough boss's man management and his ability to get his tactical message across. And finally, Middlesbrough have been without some key players for several weeks now, but it hasn't impacted their form too much, in a testament to the squad depth. Their defeat to Stoke City came on the back of a 7-game winning run, and while there looked to be some tired legs in that game, Michael Carrick was able to rotate many of his players for the midweek cup win at Exeter City as they advanced to the quarterfinals. Didn't we ever? They then played out the thrilling 3-3 draw with Plymouth on Saturday, and while be it frustrating, it will remain a positive performance. In the absence of many key players who have been missing of late, a lot of other players who have come into the team have stepped up. Borough now have a free week this week with no game until Leicester City's visit on Saturday, but it remains to be seen if any of our injured players can return in time for that game. But then we have the 2-week break for internationals, after which we hope, we pray, we get Rye over with his oils so that we can start to get some of these options back in the weeks ahead. That is your Borough headlines. Good morning, Borough fans.
Did you say get Rye over with his oils?
Yeah, that's because I'm really good at massages, and I'll get Riley McGree on that pitch within a second.
All right, okay, fair enough. Just wanted to clarify.
That's creepy.
Yeah.
Magpies and Proud. Mags News.
Newcastle United's Champions League campaign looks to be short-lived as Dortmund completed a depressing double at Signal Iduna Park last night. A goal in each half gave the Germans victory to add to their 1-0 success at St James's Park 2 weeks ago, and leaves qualification in doubt for Eddie Howe's injury-hit squad. In the other match, AC Milan beat PSG 2-1, which sent Newcastle to the bottom of the table. Newcastle United under-19s played the fourth of their 6 UEFA Youth League group stage ties yesterday and came from 2 goals down for a 2-2 draw against Dortmund at the Brackle training ground. Late goals from Heffernan and Huntley gained United their first point, although are still 5 points adrift to third place PSG under-19s, who were beaten 3-2 in Milan. The Brazil squad for the 2 World Cup qualifiers later this month has been announced and includes both Bruno Guimaraes and Joe Linton. They are due to be in the party to face Colombia on November the 17th before a home clash with Argentina on November the 22nd. And Brazil will also play a friendly match against England at Wembley on Saturday, March the 23rd next year. And Newcastle United's technical director Dan Ashworth has spoken to the media about Sandro Tonali and claims that the FA may investigate into whether the player has breached gambling rules since signing for Newcastle. He said, "All I can say to you is that we fully cooperated with all of the associations and organisations concerned, and that the FA are of course fully aware of what's going on. They're the ones who had to sanction the ban, so we're fully cooperating with everybody." That's in Newcastle United headlines on Wednesday morning.
Okay, yeah, that's your 3 clubs headlines across the North East on the Cat, the Red and the Toon. The North East Footy Breakfast and all the nonsense that surrounds it will be back after this. What do you think of it, fellas? What do you think of it, the Beatles?
Superb.
Yeah.
What a throwback that was.
Have you seen...
oh, my goodness.
Have you seen the video?
Yeah.
No,
I haven't, no.
Oh.
Brilliant video. Peter Jackson, who of course did the last documentary about the Beatles, has done a wonderful job. Some people say it's a little bit too sentimental, but I think it's great. I think it's great. You can get it on YouTube. You can see it on it was on a few different news outlets. There's a mini documentary that goes with it as well, which is about 12 minutes long, which is fantastic. But there's, for Beatle fans, I think anyone who got a copy of the 12-inch of that single, you've got yourself a real bargain, because they only printed 400, and of those particular 12 inches, I think the retailed at about $17.99. I've seen them going on eBay now for about £100. But nice little touches with it. It had on one side the Apple logo for the Now and Then track, and they've done Love Me Do, which of course was the Beatles' first single on the other side of it, and they've done the Parlophone label on the other side. So it's some nice little quirky things for Beatle fans, but it's I think there's a tinge of sadness, because that's the last original thing we'll hear from the Beatles. It's the last. Yeah. It is literally their last song.
Still very lucky to get it as well. I mean, just to hear John Lennon's vocal again, like with new material after so long, like, and there's something. The thing that I love about the Beatles is there's just beauty in the simplicity of the writing and the instrumentation of it. It's just it's a gorgeous track, that really is.
But just the lyrics, I mean, it's spooky.
I think that's over sentimental.
I mean, and we've got to bear in mind this song was written a long time ago. And yet watching the video and you hear the lyrics and Now and Then, I Miss You and all that sort of stuff. It's as though they could have, McCartney could have written it today about the two that we've lost.
If I'm going to be critical, they're releasing the original compilation albums that came. They were the first ever Beatles compilation albums. The red and blue albums come out again. They're re-releasing them. They're remastering them. Obviously, technology's moved on, so they can take stuff out, put stuff in, and make these songs so much better. But they're releasing Now and Then on the Red album, and I think that it doesn't even fit the time frame. It's not really a song that was written for the Beatles. I think it should have been added to the anthology. There's so much stuff that they did with the anthology, which and again the techniques that they've used to sort there was an issue with the piano on this particular track. They couldn't, in the 90s when they did Free as a Bird and the other song that they brought out, they couldn't remaster, and they couldn't clean the piano. They couldn't really hear the piano that John was playing. Technology now, they've been able to do that. I think they should have been added to the anthology, and there's a few of the Beatles' early tracks, the really early stuff, I think, which was 1957, 58. I think some of those particular songs could be remastered now, and I think they should have added to that. But it's a small point. As somebody who's got a big interest in it, it's a small point that I'm just pleased that they've released it, and it must be emotional for Paul McCartney, who still sells out huge stadiums to hear that song, to put that song out, and it's it's going in at number one. No surprise there. It's actually, here's a great stat. I think the sales in its first week, it's actually outsold the top 5 combined, which tells you all you need to know about the Beatles.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether this has all been planned as well. This has been slightly delayed. But also brought out in the same year that the Rolling Stones released their new album. The battle between the Stones and the Beatles lives on,
continues,
lads.
I've got to ask Ted the Rocker. What do you think about using AI, to clone John's voice and get it in there? I mean, is there anything ethically we should be looking at here or not? Just use technology to produce that. I mean, he's no longer with us.
It's a funny one. Yeah, it's a strange one, Dave, because I love this. I mean, I love the nostalgia of this track coming out. It was made with the remains of some lyrics and a few little bits and bobs and excerpts. So they were able to pull it together out of that. In terms of, using John's voice to write a whole new album or something like that, and just the voice, no, I'm bang against that, because the thing that made the Beatles great was not just the tight harmonies and the musicianship. It was the creativity that went into the writing of it, and that was the big thing. And having Lennon and McCartney working together on some of the best lyrics that's ever been produced in some of their songs. A Day in the Life for me is just like one of the greatest ever. Yeah, some superb lyrics being written. The use of AI in terms of anything other than being able to finish off unfinished works, great, do that. Let's have let's have what we should have heard. Anything else in terms of new material, leave it well alone. I think ethically it's wrong.
I mean, it's amazing stuff. I was at a radio event, being Radio Dad, at the weekend, and there were companies there that serve the radio industry, and one of the companies, it was amazing. I mean, it's an AI news reading service. And basically what they do is they clone somebody's voice. So Ted, you could become our newsreader 24/7. We could take 2 minutes of your voice. You stick it into the AI.
Instead of AI, that's YI.
YI newsreading. And they showed me an example with David Attenborough. I don't know if he knows that they're doing this, but they'd cloned David Attenborough's voice. They'd taken 4 minutes or something of audio off one of his TV broadcasts, stuck it in. This was just for a demo. And they just said, right, what do you want in your news bulletin? So you select a bit of text, and the AI engine then delivers a news bulletin to the duration that you ask it to, and it was just as though David Attenborough was sitting there reading the news.
No way.
I mean, it was just completely natural. The intonation, the way he delivers slowly, the way his voice moves up and down as he does. I mean, it was amazing. It wasn't like, I'm used to these AI things from last year where it just sounds like it's a computer-generated voice. This was David Attenborough reading the news. If you shut your eyes, you would think he was there in front of you. I mean, it's spooky what this thing can do now.
It really is.
So for our news, that means we wouldn't always be stuck with a loud, brash Australian. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's a case of who do you want to read the news, fellas? We can have anybody.
Crossing out the Christmas card list again, Ted. Look at you bouncing on and off it like this, hey? Back off it. Where are you? There you are. Second in the row. Cross that name out. Catch you later.
I'm not even.
It is crazy though. I don't know if you guys saw it, but on social media they did. There was a lad out there that did an AI generated kits for all the Premier League teams. I don't know if you saw it, but they put in the thing just create the home kits for all all the Premier League teams, and some of the kits that the AI just generated were incredible. One, especially the Man United one, which looked amazing with its black and red flair and a bit of gold trim on it. But it's incredible, like to think that graphic design or kit design could just be as simple as AI generated for the next future seasons, because I mean it'd take the work out of it, wouldn't it?
Well, there's a lot of work for Man U kids.
Some of the kids
about
were
7,
really, really nice. So yeah, it's interesting the way we're headed with this sort of stuff. It is wild.
Spooky.
Yeah, Stephen Hawking says it'll be the end of humans, AI.
That's it.
He says he was never a fan of it, and he says it's the last thing we'll invent. So there's a great documentary on BBC iPlayer about AI. Obviously, dives into the the reason that we've created it and why we've created it, but also the pros and cons. And I mean, there are some positives, but there's more negatives to it at the moment, I would say, especially with the way that the world is going. It's not something which I think we should embrace fully until we understand it. But the fact that AI can recreate, it's getting to the point where AI will be able to make decisions and make decisions that humans don't want to make, and I just find it all a bit weird. But I'm with Ted on the music side of things before we start going down some kind of dark wormhole. I think
like talking football on this show. Oh,
I think the music side of things. Yeah, in the old days, when it used to be Steve Wright, Ted, Radio Dad, and Daz. Yeah, now it's just 5 AI bots. But yeah, I agree. I'd hate to hear an album completely created by AI. I think that's just a horrendous idea. But I think given it, using AI and it's a bit like films, using CGI, like in the Star Wars films where they used a little bit of Carrie Fisher to complete the Star Wars film.
Yeah, that's right.
With her,
Rogue One.
I thought that was a it was a nice touch. I thought they brought back was it Peter Cushing's character in it as well, where that was completely CGI'd, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. Yeah. That is amazing to be able to create the guy's voice, put him on there, and even the recent Indiana Jones film where Harrison Ford was made to look younger.
The DH
it doesn't look perfect, but when they do it, it's, you know, if you go with it, it's a film. You know, we you know, we'll watch films and we go with a stupid narrative sometimes. But if you're prepared to go and watch it for what it is, that's fine. They did it with The Irishman, with De Niro and Pacino as well. You know, I think that was the very first film that I remember seeing them, you know, be made look younger. But you go with it. It's entertainment. That's what it's all about. And yeah, I don't mind it being used for that.
I've had a thought, guys. What about AI VAR?
Oh,
Well,
can you imagine?
I suppose that would help.
Be quicker than
Take away the human error.
Probably.
Yeah, it would be instant, wouldn't it? It'd make an instant decision. Be able to compute
Yeah,
it
it wouldn't
27
have to
trillion
wait.
times a second or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be super
Yeah.
quick, which would be bloody handy. But instead of waiting 15 minutes while the game cools down and you get people getting injured, and, you know, yeah, it's ridiculous. So yeah, look, you know what? If they want to get players into the VAR rooms and maybe get an AI generated robot, and Will Smith can stand there watching it closely and you know, and maybe
What,
they
in his
can
black
make
suit and his
decisions
dark
for us.
glasses?
Yeah,
Ready to
exactly,
flash
yeah,
a light at
exactly.
everybody.
Yeah, I've seen iRobot. I'm worried, lads. I'm worried.
Anyway, back to football. I tried to get you there, but we ended off on Will Smith. So, yet another tangent disappearing down Steve's wormhole.
By having the world's first AI footballer, lads. You know, you could have that robot Lewandowski. Let's have a few more suggestions on that one.
Oh, well, there you go. We just scrap the game as it is, and we all just play it with AI. We all just sit there and watch it on a screen. There you go. Borough can be Champions League winners. Yeah, brilliant.
All right then, lads,
It's a
let's talk
computer, it's
about...
not a gateway to a magic kingdom.
How dare
Let's
you,
talk-
mate?
Let's
crossing
talk
off
about this
Christmas
tug of
list.
war. Let's talk about this tug of war, the North East tug of war for Nathaniel Adeji, lads. This is a story that's broken the Nationals. It's Sunderland and Middlesbrough in this in this battle for this guy's signature. What's your thoughts? Who wants to put a
I'll
case
take it for Borough in the terms that we don't really need him. I mean, he's a centre back. If he can play it right back, then I think we need him. But we just got Vandenberg, which is a young centre back with a bit of a prodigy sort of listing to him. So I actually don't think Middlesbrough's link to here is worthy of it being true. I think the Sun obviously came out with it saying that Sunderland and Middlesbrough are the ones linked, and I don't really, I take the Sun with a grain of salt as much as I am on page 3. Hello, look me up. And I think it's ridiculous that we would be going for another 18-year-old centre back. Well, I just don't see us needing him. I mean, you got Lenihan coming back, you got Dale Fry. I would argue that's our two centre pairings, and then you'd have Vandenberg coming off that. I think Paddy McNair is probably close to leaving. I think he did probably have a look at a few offers in the summer. There was a few times when he didn't rock up for preseason games and all this sort of stuff. And I think he was entertaining a few offers. He's one of the highest earners as well. He has been at the club for a long time. So I think you would think Paddy McNair's probably on the outer, even though he's playing right now. Darragh Lenihan, Dale Fry is your number 1 and number 2. Then you've got Vandenberg coming in as that young prodigy. Maybe if McNair leaves, then you've got the potential, but then you've still got Anthony Jickstill and Matt Clark as well sitting there. Matt Clark about to come back, where I think would be days ahead of bringing anyone in, especially a youngster like that. So I actually don't believe Middlesbrough are interested. I don't think we're in the market for a centre-back. I don't think we need a centre-back. I think we're actually one of our strong suits is our centre-back positioning. Our defending is not, something left to be decided, but the actual positions, the actual players within that role, apart from, injuries to Lenihan and that, we're actually pretty solid. But Ted, do you need a centre back?
If it is, it's going to be to sort of to put in the academy. Looking at him, I mean, he's played 20 games in the Swedish Premier League, if you like. So he hasn't had a massive amount of exposure to first team football, I guess, really. And let's face it, the Swedish league's neither here or there. I guess it'd be looking to call it League One level, which will really please any of the Swedish people listening who I work with. But there you go. But yeah, it's one of those where I think it would be for the academy. If we were going to sign a centre back, I think that's going to start games, it's going to be somebody who's a bit more experienced. Right now we've got Luke O'Nien playing at centre back. You know my feelings on that. I don't think he should be playing there, but he is, and Mogga makes the decisions, and he's there. Obviously Dan Ballard is the other first choice centre back. My only kind of eyebrow raise here is if we're looking at a young centre back, Dan Ballard has performed brilliantly this season and last season as well, and it could be one of those things where he could be attracting a bit of Premier League interest because he's a young lad, Northern Ireland international as well. Johnny Evans handed over the captain's armband to him in the last couple of games when Evans has come off, and he's got a big future in the game. Very, very physically imposing lad for somebody so young. And yeah, we're going to be lucky to hang on to him in the next couple of years, certainly if we don't get promoted, which we will. Yeah, so the only eyebrow raise is maybe he's being looked at as a potential future replacement. Right now, I don't think he'd be ready to step into that team, especially because we've got Jensen Seelt, who's going to be starting probably this Saturday, and of course your Aussie favourite as well, Nectar Triantis, who's going to come into the squad as well, who, you know, by rights and looking at the way he's been spoken about over in Australia, Triantis has got a good background. People seem to like him, and he's got a big future in the game as well. So yeah, if we get him in, he's going in the academy, he'll develop. Sunderland are an attractive proposition for a young footballer, because obviously, you know, you can see that the transition is there for young players to get into the side and get playing some really, really attractive football as well. You know, we might not win every single game, but what we do is pop the ball about really nicely. And it's, if you're a young lad watching that and you've got the chance to go to there or Middlesbrough, it's a simple choice, and it's Sunderland all day.
I don't want to pee on anybody's bonfire, just to keep that phrase, current. But would he get a work permit?
Well, I would imagine so, because obviously he's playing in Sweden right now.
But he's 21. He's only got he's got 20 odd games under his belt. He hasn't played international football for Ghana other than under 20s, under 23s.
Under 20s, yeah.
I don't know whether he'd qualify for a work permit, would he? I know you can appeal these things. That's how we ended up getting Janino.
It's a good question. No, it's a good question. It would be interesting to see in the current day and age whether he would. But I honestly, I think it's just rumours, especially for Sunderland. I just think Sunderland and Middlesbrough's depth at the moment. I think I agree completely with Ted. I think if Middlesbrough or Sunderland do get them, it'd be an academy signing at very best for both of us at the moment. I don't think it's someone that we'd be looking at. I think if anyone's going to come in for January, especially for Middlesbrough, right, it's got to be someone that's going to make an impact straight away, not a youngster with a future ahead of them, sort of thing.
Keep you from getting relegated, yeah.
No,
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with everything you said there, right? Yeah.
He's definitely getting crossed off Christmas card lists, isn't he?
He's sliding, mate. He's about to slide off this list, I tell you. I'm about to put James Arthur on it.
He's gone from number 2 down to number 22, has he? And you've only got 23 lines on your page.
Yeah, exactly.
A bit like what Middlesbrough do around about April.
Just you wait and see. We'll continue Leicester's rot.
We will.
Yes.
Don't you worry.
Even with half a team.
Don't you worry about that.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's 8 o'clock.
It's you sound like an old sea dog, mate. It's 8 o'clock and all is well.
It is, but it's time for the news.
It is. It's the North East Footy Breakfast that talks about everything but footy. Well, it seems to be this morning, anyway. Right across the North East on the Cap, the Red, and the Toon. We will be back after the news. I love that. I really do, fellas. Love that song. And do you know?
Do you want my geeky fact about that song and about that artist in particular?
Lisa Loeb, yeah, go on then.
Yeah, Lisa Loeb was actually the first artist to top the US charts to be an unsigned act. She didn't belong to any record label at all.
And was it with that song?
Yeah, with that song. Yeah, and I think that lasted for something like 20 years. She was the first unsigned artist to ever top the US charts. There you go. And people say I'm just an attractive human being, you know. And I'm quite intelligent as
Music
well.
Dad. Oh, that's what it is. Music Dad.
If those people who think Keith's an attractive human being could WhatsApp in, please, I believe the lines will be buzzing.
She's in the living room, mate. I'll just go and get her.
Oh, dear doctor. It's amazing, isn't it, the memories that music can just spark. Because I remember when I was radio boy, not radio dad, I went out to Malta for 9 months to run a radio station and play football out there. And that was the song that was in the charts. I took it out with me to the radio station because it had just been released. What memories music can bring.
What memories.
And then I went on to score the Beckham goal from halfway against Melilla. But there you go. That's another story. I've lived on it all my life. Come on, fellas. Your show. Get us back into football, please. Remove me from my nostalgia.
Let's do the headlines.
Really? You want to go straight in, mate?
Well, yeah. I'm trying to get the show back on track.
All right, then. Well, you're the leader.
Thanks,
you're the leader. Here we go.
Magpies
That's why
and
Steve,
proud.
Steve.
Mags News.
Newcastle United's Champions League campaign looks short-lived as Dortmund completed a depressing double at the Signal Iduna Park last night. A goal in each half gave the Germans victory to add to their 1-0 success at St James's Park 2 weeks ago and leaves qualification in doubt for Eddie Howe's injury-hit squad. In the other match, AC Milan beat PSG 2-1, sending Newcastle to the bottom of the table, set up an interesting finale in what is being called the Group of Death. Newcastle United under-19s played the fourth of their 6 UEFA Youth League group stage ties yesterday and came from 2 goals down for a 2-2 draw against Dortmund at the Brackle training ground. Late goals from Heffernan and Huntley gained United their first point, although are still 5 points adrift of third place PSG under-19s who were beaten 3-2 in Milan. The Brazil squad for the 2 World Cup qualifiers later this month has been announced and includes both Bruno Guimaraes and Joe Linton. They are due to play in the games against Colombia on November the 17th before the home clash with Argentina on November the 22nd. Brazil are also going to play a friendly match with England at Wembley on Saturday, March the 23rd next year. One for Newcastle fans' diaries, that one. And Newcastle United's technical director Dan Ashworth has spoken to the media about Sandro Tonali and claims that the FA may investigate in whether the player has breached gambling rules since signing for Newcastle. In a recent interview with the media, Ashworth was quoted as saying, "All I can say to you is we've fully cooperated with all of the associations and organisations concerned and that the FA are of course fully aware of what is going on. They're the ones who had to sanction the ban, so we are fully cooperating with everybody." That's your Newcastle United headlines, Wednesday the 8th of November.
Mackems and Proud. Black Cats News.
Morning, Sunderland fans. Sunderland have joined Rangers and a little club called Middlesbrough in their pursuit of Hammarby defender Nathaniel Ajayi, whom they want to bring to the club in January, according to the tabloids. It's been reported that all 3 clubs intend on bringing the Ghanaian in on loan in the January transfer window to strengthen their ambitions for the season. Rangers reportedly sent scouts to track Ajayi last month, but his performances have alerted English clubs to his talent, and the Scottish Giants could now face some stern competition from the Black Cats and Middlesbrough, who are just above the bottom half of the Championship table. Former Sunderland forward David Healy has emerged as the favourite to take charge of EFL outfit Grimsby Town. The well-travelled forward in his playing days, a 44-year-old has been in charge of Linfield in his native Northern Ireland since 2015. He led the club to 5 league titles as well as 2 Irish Cup victories and further 2 Irish League Cup triumphs. Grimsby are hovering precariously above the relegation zone in the 4th tier, meaning if Healy was successful, the former Black Cat striker will face a tough task. And finally, Luton Town have been hit with FA fines for 2 separate crowd control failures during last season's playoff semi-final second leg against Sunderland at Kenilworth Road. The first charge related to a push by a Luton fan on Sunderland's Ahmad in the 14th minute of the match as the unload Manchester United forward tried to retrieve the ball after it had gone out of play. The Hatters were fined £3,000 after admitting a charge stating the club failed to ensure that spectators and or its supporters conducted themselves in an orderly fashion whilst attending the match. The second charge related to a large-scale pitch incursion following the final whistle, in which home supporters made contact with Luton players and manager Rob Edwards. A number ran away to the away end and goaded the Sunderland fans. Luton admitted the charges but requested a hearing in front of an independent regulatory commission, which opted to reduce the club's total fine from £55,000 to £35,000 after hearing the club's mitigation, which included the fact that it had admitted the charges and its frank and genuine apology to Ahmad, to Sunderland and the Black Cat supporters. And that's today's headlines.
Smoggies and Proud. Borough News.
Good morning, Borough fans. Hope you're all fantastic, safe and well for this Wednesday morning. Here are the Borough headlines. Former Leicester City star Matt Piper thinks Middlesbrough's position in the championship table does not reflect their quality. The table's lying, and warned the Foxes over their imminent clash with the Borough. On Friday night, Leicester saw their 9-match unbeaten run come to an end against Leeds United at the King Power Stadium. But the Foxes are still top of the table with 39 points from 15 games. But Piper pointed out that despite a tough start to the season, Middlesbrough have managed to beat high-profile opponents in their recent games and believes their position in the league table is not a right marker of their quality. He also added that Middlesbrough are going to be a difficult challenge for Leicester and warned the Foxes that back-to-back defeats might hurt the confidence that they have built with a great start. And Zach Steffen has admitted he would have loved to have re-signed for the Middlesbrough, as I said that, this summer after enjoying an awesome year on loan last season. But he says Borough's failure to win promotion all but ended his hopes of a Riverside return. Steffen says his time on Teesside was the most enjoyable loan spell of his career, telling of his love for the beautiful area and hailing Michael Carrick for his impact after arriving as Borough head's coach. The Man City keeper said smart Carrick has instinctive awareness of what the players want and need, and was hugely impressed by the Borough boss's man management and his ability to get his tactical messages across. And finally, Middlesbrough have been without some key players for several weeks now, but it hasn't impacted their form too much, in a testament to their new squad depth. Their defeat to Stoke City came on the back of a 7-game winning run, and while they looked to have some tired legs in that game, Michael Carrick was able to rotate many of his players for the midweek cup win at Exeter City as they advanced to the quarterfinals. They then played out a thrilling 3-3 draw with Plymouth Argyle on Saturday, which, albeit frustrating, was in the main. It was a positive performance in the end, wasn't it, Borough fans? In the absence of many key players who have been missing of late, a lot of players who come into that team have stepped up, and Borough now have the free week this week with no game until Leicester City's visit on Saturday. But it remains to be seen if any of the injured players can return in time for that game. But then after that, we have the 2-week break for internationals, which we hope, we pray, we fly right over with his set of oils to get back some options after the international break. That is your Borough headlines for this Wednesday morning.
Ted, Rye and Steve, the North East Footy Breakfast.
Right across the northeast, the red, the cat, and the two.
I think there's two things off the back of that to pick on. Did you say smart Carrick?
I think so. Did I? I
Was
think I
was
did.
he talking?
Yeah,
was
he
was
said
Stefan
smart.
talking about his cardigan? Or
Yeah.
okay,
He said,
okay.
he goes, nah, the Man City keeper said he's smart, and that his instinctive awareness of what the players want and need was hugely impressive. He says managers these days don't have the personnel relationships, don't know what the blokes need on a personal level, but Carrick seems to get that straight away. Good on him, right? I feel like Carrick understands me, even though we've never met. You know what I mean? He's just a good person, isn't he?
Well, you have, mate. You've been in the press conference interviewing him quite a few times, mate.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah,
You're
indeed.
absolutely right. You're
Indeed.
absolutely right.
And another observation, which I think is worth pointing out on the show this morning. So the news headlines for our club: Steve, 81 seconds, nice. Ted, 86 seconds, nice. Rye, 9 minutes, 27 seconds.
Yep. And can I just draw attention?
I steal the show.
I just want to draw attention to the fact that there was a comment made about he enjoyed the beautiful area.
I heard the titter.
Obviously, must have been in County Durham and not Teesside.
Loved it. Stefan, all the way from America, says Los Angeles can go to the pits because Middlesbrough is a beautiful area.
Because he's been somewhere lower. Yeah.
I heard the titter coming from our Wearside representative.
I did, so did I.
Yeah.
We need a mute button
I mean,
on that.
You've never ever got any chance of meeting. And that's it, Steve. I heard it as well, mate. He's never going to meet Michael Carrick if Carrick hears that. It's like, hiya, Michael, nice to meet you. Come and see my oil collection. Which essential oil would you like on your calves? Yeah.
That's exactly right. And Riley, if you are listening, my lavender oils are ready to go. They will get rid of that foot, whatever issue you've got.
Disease, you were going to say.
I was going to say, I didn't know what it is.
I'll sort out that fungal rot. Apologies if you're eating your breakfast.
I'm just actually on Northumbria Police's website. Various types of stalking here. Football player stalking, it's called.
Honest to God.
You can just imagine being caught. Sorry, Your Honour. I just wanted to rub oil on his feet. Yeah, that would be a great one, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, he's ended up in St Luke's with that, like, isn't he? Oh, blimey.
You know what St Luke's is? Hang on. Whoa. Slow, hold the horses. You know the history of St Luke's?
Yes. Absolutely. You forget I used to play football.
Oh, I used to play football for Billingham, yeah, and being a Mackham, of course, you'd visit St Luke's. Yeah, okay, that's fair enough.
I only ever used to go for a Parmo, to be fair, but there you go. That's the only reason
I was stunned, shocked and stunned.
For those, it's been years since a Parmo, I tell you.
Yeah, well, for those of a non-Teesside persuasion, just to let you know, St Luke's was the loony bin, but there you go, it's been changed now. It's been given a posh name.
We can't do that anymore.
St Nick's in Newcastle, so there you go. St Nick's
Cherry Nolan, Sunderland. Yeah.
So, by the way, am I allowed? Will I be cancelled now because I called it a loony bin?
I believe so. That's
you're
what
done.
other people used to refer it to. I'll just dig you out of that one, Dave.
Yeah, thanks, fellas.
Yeah,
it was nice knowing you. Nice knowing you. Yeah.
When Daz is back tomorrow, you'll know why.
At least I'll go to sleep in.
So where we're going to go, lads?
Back on track.
Yeah.
Where we're going to go?
Pull us out of this hole, Steve. Come on, sensible dad.
I could end up going to somewhere which we've been before. I'm gonna pick this one though. England men's deaf futsal team are heading to the World Championships, but won't be funded by the FA. The costs are being covered by one of the players' fathers, who says he spent over £100,000 in the past 2 years. Meanwhile, the women's team head to Sao Paulo, fully funded. Do you think this is right, lads? I mean, look, if you're going to fund one football team, which is supposedly representing the country, then you've got to fund them all, haven't you? I mean, why on earth?
If you're talking inclusivity, Steve, then the FA's got to do something about that. That's an absolute disgrace. They're still playing under, I assume, under some sort of FA rules in terms of the rules of the game. Obviously, yeah, it's going to be slightly different, but if you're talking absolute inclusivity across everywhere, then the FA's got to pull their finger out of that, and that's shocking if they don't.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's disgusting.
Yeah, I just think that, you know, this is just one of those things that's been, you know, completely overlooked or deliberately overlooked. I don't understand it. This is like Mike Ashley's days at Newcastle, where he wouldn't even give the women's football team a set of strips. You know, they had to buy their own strips. Yeah. I mean, what do you think, Ray? Yeah,
I think it's disgusting, mate. I think if it's one in all in, isn't it? You know what I mean? If you're representing your country, no matter what it is, then the country, you know, the FA especially, you know, who are spending so much money on VAR, and that's gone so well. You know, why can't they listen? It's terrible. And to hear one of the dads forking out that much, my goodness me. That, you know, and that just goes to show you the costs of having to go through it all. And you know, he needs one, reimbursement, and two, they definitely need to pull their foot out of their bums and get on board with that one, because that's disgusting. I tell you, it wouldn't happen down here in Australia. Wouldn't happen here in Australia.
That's it. It's for me. I mean, hopefully, if the FA don't do something about that, hopefully the fact that story's out there, some sort of commercial partner will see that and see a great opportunity,
or even like a GoFundMe
to be the hero, really.
Eh? Yeah, that's maybe even a GoFundMe that the country can get behind, or something like that, where we all can chip in. You know, because you know, when you get a few people on those GoFundMes and each chip in £5, then it goes a long way just to help that poor bloke out that's forked out that amount of money. Especially when it's an actual
full-blown tournament, you know, that's
exactly,
important. That, you know, people work all their lives really hard to get to those sort of things, and it's, you know, friendlies and things like that's by the by, but big tournament like that they should not have to be forked out of their own pocket for that. No chance.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Yeah, no, it's disgusting, and it needs to be looked at. And FA, I know you're a big listener of the show, and you know, you have us on in the morning officers there. One, your VAR sucks, and two, pull your finger out of your bums.
I'm sure Mark Bullingham will be acting as we speak. Sorry, Mark Bullingham will be acting as Ryan speaks.
Yes, what's your thoughts on this one,
Let's make that clear.
Look, when you're a representative body...
Can I also say that look, Ted's been giving me a lot of stick, but can we just say he's a secret Aussie lover, all right? You know, he's got Triantis, is it?
Where's
you know, down at the Mackhams, right? Yep. He talks about the love for Paul Hogan. We all know that this banter between us is him, you know, like pulling my pigtails in the playground. You know, it's actually a bit of a flirt. You know what I mean? He wants
Where's
to be on
this
the
going?
card
Where's
list,
it
right?
going?
I'm scared, man.
In the WhatsApp, he says Ange Postecoglou is his favourite. Right, this is Ted. Right, he's not only backing the tune here, and shout out to, you know, Ted's sister if you're listening. He also said Ange Postecoglou is his favourite manager in the world. What's going on, Ted? Are you a secret Australian? And two, do you even actually like the Mackhams?
Whoa. Oh, that's fine ground, that, mate. Come on. I'm not having that. Not having that. Oh, we're going to finish well above you, and believe you me, it's only going to get worse for you as the shows go on. What I said about Ange was it was about the ref's authority, and I thought it was a great interview he gave, mine, to be fair. I love how passionate this guy speaks. He talks like the wise older bloke that sits in the pub and's got loads of interesting life stories. You know, he's one of them characters. But he was on about the ref's, the authority in the game, and the fact that they should be given more respect, and that was the way he was brought up. And I love the way he puts it across. He's very, very entertaining to listen to. What I said was, this is superb from Ange. I want him to be my new dad. That's what I actually said.
It's even worse. He wants us part of the family.
Wise.
What a sensible man.
Isn't he?
What a sensible man.
Talks,
Protects referees. What a sensible man.
Yeah.
I do have links to Australia as well, right? So my dad actually used to live there for many years. So it's
was that after he got sent there, mate?
Yeah, I don't know what crime he committed. Oh my God, knowing my dad, I mean, me and Rai could be related.
I like what keep saying, lads. What happens in the WhatsApp group should stay in the WhatsApp group.
Yes.
Rai,
a very wise rule, Steve.
Why Rai has to keep bringing these things up on the show, I don't know.
Oh, mate, if you'd seen the look of panic on my face.
As well, though, Steve. I mean, are you impressed with what Ange is doing down at Tottenham? I mean, obviously they've lost, their first game of the season, but the way he speaks in these press conferences feels like a breath of fresh air for me.
Well, he's just basically, he's just the flavour of the month at the moment, and he will go through these phases where managers get put on a pedestal and then knocked down. I mean, Jurgen Klopp was probably the one that took the Premier League by storm. Jose Mourinho did it. Everyone's favourite other manager. Enjoy listening to his little, his press conferences, the little things he says, like the way that he conducts himself. But then they all end up like Arteta at the end of the day. They all end up losing the plot. They all end up jumping up and down on the sidelines and saying things you don't like. It's just it's the nature of the beast. The press enjoy the love-in that they have with them, but as soon as things start going wrong at Tottenham, which inevitably they will, they're always the bridesmaid, never the bride. We'll see the other side of Ange and how he's coping. A lot of it comes down to the fixtures as well. Fixtures, in the season. A lot of it comes down to whether you get a bit of luck with injuries. Lots of things change. And we haven't seen the flip side. You can cope with it when you're down to 9 men and you lose a game 4-1 against your rivals. It's easy to come out and that's the first game you've lost this season. It's all right to come out and be cool, calm, and collected. Let's see what he's like if he goes another couple of games and has another couple of bad results. Let's see how he copes with that. But yeah, you can't help but be impressed about how Tottenham as a whole have coped with losing Harry Kane. Harry Kane leaving left a huge hole in that team, and you looked at that and thought, wow, they are really going to struggle. I had Postecoglou as the man who was going to lose his job first. I thought Spurs would struggle. I didn't think the players would take to him, but it's a credit to the players in that dressing room. It's a credit to Son, who's taken over the captaincy, who's managed to keep that dressing room together. There's clearly some big characters there. Obviously they had the news about Richarlison yesterday, who's going to be out for some period of time now with a bit of surgery, but they've got a team that performs and plays, and I think Spurs will be there or thereabouts again in the European slots, which is a massive bonus. They missed out on Europe last year. They haven't got the concern of Europe this year, which is the way Newcastle were last season. We said, does it make your season easier when you haven't got those midweek games to worry about? Well, of course it does. Less chance of injuries, less travelling, and just concentrate on the league. So this season was always going to be a little bit easier for Spurs in that sense. So yeah, look, he's proved me wrong this season. Certainly doing well, but like we keep saying, awards aren't handed out, trophies aren't handed out in November, lads. Doesn't matter what division you're in. Let's judge Ange at the end of the season, and we can see where we're at. But if it was a school report for his half-term school report, he's had a good start, lads. It wouldn't be a case it could do better. keep this up, is what you would be saying to Postecoglou, I think.
But his skill report on dealing with the media and the press and the cameras, you'd obviously rate him even higher than that, and you'd give him a gold star and a teacher's certificate for current performance.
Yeah.
But he has got a challenger. Have you heard Michael Birmingham, who's the manager of Horndean? Have you heard his reviews of his performances?
No.
Oh no.
Here we go.
So, it was a frustrating afternoon. Give us your thoughts on that display.
Nah, it weren't frustrating. We were crap. First half, pathetic. Bunch of losers. Didn't want to work hard. Didn't want to get in a physical fight. Scared. Thought they could turn up after having a good performance against Sheppey and a good result against Ramsgate on a pitch that was lively, very heavy, and they didn't want to do the hard work. And they got out-muscled, outworked. And to be honest, we were crap first half and got what we deserved.
You think it was more?
There you go, fellas. I mean,
wow.
Yeah, we discussed this. I think it was a deal you were off, Dave.
Oh, was it really?
We did, yeah.
Brilliant.
We didn't have the audio though. We didn't have the audio. Which is fantastic.
Wouldn't it be great? How much of a breath of fresh air would it be?
Mate.
Champions League interviews, Premier League, EFL interviews, if the managers just spoke their mind. It was fantastic.
You know, he doesn't have his badges either, and he refuses to get them. He said, like, if he gets his club promoted, and he's like, because he doesn't have any of his coaching badges, and he refuses to get them. He goes, why do I need a badge to coach, these boys? They listen to me, they respect me, and that's all I need. So if he does end up getting promoted, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, because he said he doesn't have his badges and he'll never get them. So I don't know what will happen there.
Wow.
Yeah,
Says they're a waste of time. Yeah. Waste of time, yeah, which is incredible. Good, another breath of fresh air there.
Fresh
as well,
breath
so
air. That's it.
He's gone back to being Steve McLaren again.
fresh pill. I've got Will Smith on my mind again. Fresh breath of Bel Air.
Whose teeth have you got in?
Tell you what, it's baby
All
brain.
over
It's
the
baby.
shop.
It's baby
All
brain.
over
That's
the
what it is. Oh,
shop.
hang on. That caused hell, didn't it, between Catherine and what the caller off suits? Yeah.
I think it would be great to have some press conferences like that. I think it would be great. It is a breath of fresh air. I do like that guy. I just genuinely think that it would be refreshing if people could come out and speak their minds, but it's never going to happen, is it, at the top level? That's for certain.
Can I just ask quickly on that Richarlison as well? Do you guys? We spoke quickly the other day about Anthony being a bit of a flop at Man United, even though he's still probably got a little bit of a career ahead of him. Can you put Richarlison down now as a flop? Now that considering everything's happened, we were speaking a couple of weeks ago, weren't we, Steve, about obviously him taking time off for mental health and him struggling there, and he hasn't scored and yada yada yada, and now he's out injured and he's got a few months ahead of him in a rehab. Surely we have to put him now in the category of it being a bit of a flop, that whole move, over to Tottenham, because since he's moved, it's really gone anything but backwards for him.
Yeah, I think it's been tough for him, mate. It's been tough for him. He's clearly got a battle with mental health, and that is the first thing you think about when you think about Richarlison at the moment. I mean, coming off the pitch crying, struggling to see light at the end of the tunnel. He's clearly got some demons. Injuries don't help that either. When you suddenly pick up an injury and you haven't been in good form. But yeah, I think it would be harsh to call him a flop. I think I think he's proved himself at Everton, especially. He was banging the goals in there. He's an awkward player. He's a dangerous player. But the move to Spurs, I think is coincided with probably some tough times in his personal life, and I think that's the big issue with Richarlison. So I wouldn't call him a flop. I think give him time to recuperate from this injury. That'll also give him time, hopefully, to get his head sorted out, and I think he'll come back. I think he'll come back the player that we know he can be. He's a good Premier League player, but I just think I think there's a lot going on in Richarlison's head which needs to be sorted out.
Ted, do you reckon he's a flop? Do you reckon he's obviously just had more issues than game time and goals and all that for Tottenham since the multi-million-dollar move? I mean, we were quick to put Anthony, Maguire, all that at Man United in that category. I mean, it just feels like it's been a bit of a mess since moving to Tottenham for him. Yeah,
this is very, very, very dangerous ground, because when you're talking about yes, he's a footballer that earns, probably in six figures every single month in terms of his salary, but he's a human being at the end of the day. When you're talking about mental health,
he gets $5 million a year, yeah.
But if you're not well in your own mind, you're not well in your own mind, and it doesn't matter how much money you're earning. And I know there'll be people who argue the point of, well, he earns this much amount of money a year, that would make me happy. Well, good for you, mate. If that makes you happy, that's all down to the individual. Clearly, this guy is struggling. Yes, the move to Tottenham, and I would even say, Everton, never set the world alight as, sort of, you would never put him up there with the world's greatest, but a steady away Premier League player all the same. But this move to Tottenham, obviously, it's coincided, I think, with a lot of pressure. Having to sort of play up to the standard of Harry Kane, things like that, and things haven't gone well for him. But these are young lads, and sort of we talked about abuse online, abuse on the stands, all that sort of thing. If you're not well in your own mind and you're starting to get called this, that, and the other, you're crap and whatever, it's bound to play on him, and this guy needs a period of recovery to come back. I would love to think that he isn't going to be a flop and he gets his head sorted and becomes in a much happier place, because I think there is a talented player in there. I think that's undoubted. He gets picked regularly for the Brazil squad. Brazil don't pick losers. That's been proven for decades now. So yeah, I think in terms, especially being as we are in Movember as well, I think we just need to be a little bit more, as fans as well, I'm not just talking about being on radio and things like that, as fans, we need to be a lot more supportive, a lot more thoughtful about the mental state of these players, because at the end of the day, most of them are just young lads who they've been exposed massively to the public and to the media. Their personal lives are not their own. That's bound to take the toll on them at some point. We just need to, I think, back them up and just be a little bit more supportive of the lads.
Yeah, it does seem to be a real tough run for him. And obviously, we've seen a few players this season come out with mental health issues, and it seems to be something that's becoming more and more prevalent. And you look at even over at Liverpool and what's going on over there with the kidnapping of his dad and stuff like that. And there's been some big stories there, but yeah, Richarlison's obviously he's been a bit of a rough year, and he's come out and he's he was crying off the pitch, and his goals haven't come, and maybe the injury, whatever it is, might give him a bit of time just to get that help that he obviously deserves and needs, both mentally and physically, to get his body right and his mind right, because the mind's a big part of football, isn't it? If your mind's not right, then your boots aren't on, sort of thing. So hopefully that Richarlison can come back as bigger and better, because I think he's got it in him to be one of the world beaters. He's a Brazilian flair, and when he's on, isn't he? And he could be one of the superstars of the game, and he's got all the pedigree to be there. But you would hate to see a great career be I guess tarnished or ruined by mental health and stuff like that, because no one deserves that. What I mean?
It does ask the question. I mean, you've got more and more players coming out. I remember I write for the Sunderland Fans and Banter page. I've done it for about 5 years now. Around about 40,000 followers, so we get a decent backing with things like that. And I wrote a little bit a number of years ago now, back in 2019. There was an Accrington Stanley player called Billy Key who came out and basically said that he was really struggling with his mental health, and I remember I wrote a piece about it on the page, and funnily enough, Accrington Stanley reached out and we had a little chat with their player liaison officer about it. Oh, nice. All in support and all that kind of thing, which I love that, and it proves that people are listening. Now the clubs want to do something about it, the players want to do something about it, but what's actually been done? Because this has gone on a little while now. We talk about the head injury thing, and it's just taken a long time to get sorted out. What is actually there? Not just for the players, but for fans as well. We go to football matches to escape the humdrum normal stuff of life, and all that kind of thing. What's actually, there doesn't seem to be an awful lot being done to support these guys and get the awareness up. Do you think that mental health with players and fans and everyone who's involved in the football family, is it still a taboo, do you think?
Yeah,
I think somewhere
I do think it is. I do think it is. I think people still struggle to talk about mental health issues, and despite
definitely
the fact that there's organisations being set up, that some fairly high profile players on the men's and women's game have come out and spoken about it, it's still something that's very, very difficult to talk about. It's one of those issues which men predominantly don't like to talk about. They don't like to talk about being down in the mental health. I mean, we wonder what Tonali's going through with regards to his situation, being out of contention to play for his football club now, through his own acts, it has to be said, but he now has to cope with this particular situation. I mean, how's he feeling? He certainly looks as if he's got all the worries of the world on his shoulders whenever you see him, but that kind of thing is going to affect anybody. It's an addiction, and he has to live with that day to day. He has to live with his own actions day to day. So it's I do know, obviously, I can speak from Newcastle's perspective, that they deal with these kind of things from a young age. Players coming through the academy, they're educated, they're told about the pitfalls, the highs and lows that you can face as a professional footballer, and ultimately that should really set you in good stead. But I mean, it's like most places of work now. You will have somebody who is assigned to be that person who you go to talk to if you have an issue at work, and football's no different. And it's whether the individual chooses to go and speak to somebody. So it's very difficult, because we all deal with our own issues in our own way. We all have ways of decompartmentalizing our emotions. We have boxes in our brains, I guess, is the way we probably look at it, where we can put things, and we can put things away, and there'll be things, like grief, and the way that you deal with grief is different to the way that the way I deal with it is different the way you guys deal with it, and some people will throw themselves into work, some people will throw themselves behind a door and not come out for weeks. That we all have different ways. So I think the key really is over the last couple of years, I had to deal with the death of my mum. I spoke to my friends. I went out and I had a good support network. My family and my friends were great around that period, and around that time they were always there. And I find that the best way to deal with situations like that is to talk to people, no matter what it is. You might go through a monumental event in your life. It could be positive, it could be negative, and you just got to talk to people. And I think choose your friends wisely as well. Choose your friends wisely. That's the other thing, because if you choose your friends wisely, you find that when you have times of need and you need to speak to people, they are the ones who are there. They know you best, and they'll be there and they'll have your back. But it's Richarlison's situation really is. It's tough to watch. It's tough to watch, and when you see a guy cry on a football pitch. Down to the fact that he's not hitting the same kind of levels that he was hoping that he was hitting 12 months ago, 2 years ago. There's something deeper than just missing football, opportunities. So I feel sorry for him, and I certainly wouldn't call him a flop. I think he needs this bit of time out, although it's come through an injury. I think he needs this bit of time out, and hopefully he comes back fighting on all fronts, and does well in his recovery. And let's not forget the Richarlison backstory as well, and what he does back home. With his earnings. I mean, he gives 10% of his money away to a home for cancer patients back in his home state. He actually supports over 100 families financially back in Brazil as well from the money he earns. So the guy is coming from the right place as a human being as well. So even more so, we should look at this guy, and if he needs help, is give him help. But the big question I want to ask from us, because we're all football fans, as football fans, do we ever consider the mental health state or impact we can have on players? Because these guys, all of us have to go to work, all of us have to perform, but none of us have to do this in front of 50, 60,000 people with the impact of being on a pedestal publicly that social media can bring, etc., etc. Do we ever consider as fans the impact we can have on footballers' mental health?
I think we're becoming better.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
I agree, right? I don't think we really truly consider it. I think we're more mindful of it now. So when we see like instances like this with Richarlison, I think we are getting better at having the conversation about it. Maybe not right at the time, because football's the most passionate sport on the planet. It's why I love it. there's nothing better than throwing your limbs around your mate after when you see one go in from Kieran Richardson and a free kick against the Geordies or something like that, Steve. We're in the moment. We're absolutely in that moment, and that's what we love. As a Sunderland fan, I love nothing more than seeing my team win and compete as much as we possibly can. But at the end of the day, I think after and in retrospect, I think we're becoming much better at having the conversation now.
I think who did it really well in recent times for me, obviously that Norwich City video, that took the internet by storm, didn't it?
Yeah.
Watching that and looking after your mate.
It was a hard watch,
that. It shows how prevalent it is in people's minds and stuff like that when a video like that it blows up, for instance, because it shows how important it is. And well, not only that, but how much we need to talk about it because it was such a in-your-face video. It kind of reminded you, that mental health is such a big part of the game. But also, not only that, but for me, for those that have watched Ted Lasso was a great insight into mental health.
Superb.
And the way Ted sort of dealt with his sort of, I guess, social attacks and anxiety attacks and all that sort of stuff. And then he went and got counselling and was able to get over it and stuff like that. And even though it's fiction and a story in front of us, but showing that sort of stuff in a footballing TV show kind of just allows people to realize that it is a thing and people can talk about it. And even if it is hey, you're talking to your mate about Ted Lasso, did you see the episode last night, and did you see how he had that anxiety attack, and I've actually been struggling at work, blah blah, it could just progress from that sort of thing. So when it's in modern day media and we're talking about it, I think it allows people to realize how it's okay to bring it up. Do you know what I mean? And maybe if you find that safe space in your mates or whatever it is, because it is prevalent in the media. We see the Norwich City, as I said, those Norwich City and Ted Lasso, and I hope other clubs, I hope other mainstream medias, can do that. And it doesn't have to be, call this number 1-800. It's just it's having a chat. It's hearing the stories of these boys that are going through it, and then you got that relation to them as humans, don't you? Because you look at Royal Charleston and you go, wow, he's earning this amount of money. You don't really relate to him on a human level. But when he comes out and says, and you see him crying on the pitch, and you see him saying he's struggling at work, we've all been there. You know what I mean? We've all struggled at work. We've all done that, and you relate to him then more as a human being rather than this this pedestal of $1 million man player sort of thing. So I think we're getting better at it. I think we've still got a long way to go, and you'll get the the real far left-sided fans that are on the whatever they're on, and they'll never understand it because they're just old school like that. But I think as a society we're getting there, but there's still a lot more to be done for sure. And
the silver lining in all of this is it's no longer a taboo subject. It's a subject that you can talk about. It is a subject that you shouldn't be ashamed of. If somebody in the family is suffering from a mental health situation, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you just wouldn't discuss it. It was embarrassing to discuss, and it's no longer taboo, which is progress, absolutely.
100%. Even if if somebody's listening to this show and in this conversation, even if it's somebody who thinks, do you know what, my mate's been a bit quiet lately, or something along those lines,
exactly,
drop them a message. Go, exactly. How's it going? You fancy a pint? Whatever, and just reach out. Because it's I think you'd rather listen to 10 minutes of somebody's problems than the alternative of just sitting there in silence and struggling with it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, 100%.
And if anyone's looking for a Christmas card this year, I've got a spot on my list as well. So I can write up a Christmas card. You
see about and I was just about. I thought you were going to go about the work thing, because every time I walk into the office, I get booed anyway.
Yeah, well, he can post one more card now to the North East, because you're off his Christmas card list, mate.
That's all right.
Cyprus is
the North East of Cyprus. I was going to say, I probably wouldn't get it till next year anyway. Mate, the posting is shocking.
Let's not talk about the politics behind the Green Line and all that sort of stuff. Let's not get there.
No, God, no.
Do we need to protect the referees? Do the Premier League need to protect referees? Radio Dad,
Have you missed it yesterday?
The Premier League to act and protect its referees after labelling the statements from Liverpool and Arsenal on VAR as dangerous. Is he right, Dave?
Yeah.
Arteta yesterday, mate. Did he put a bee in your bonnet? Talking the way he did?
No, because look, I've not refereed a Premier League game. I've refereed FA Cups. I've refereed conference stuff and things like that, and professional leagues around the world. But I've not been a Premier League referee. But yeah, I was part of PGMOL. Oh goodness. I was always a referee that understood. I went into refereeing with my eyes open because I went into refereeing at a later sort of stage. Played the game, abused many refs myself, and then it was poacher turned gamekeeper. So I got it. I was always a ref that talked with players. I gave as much. I give as good as I used to get within reason. Oh dear, for me, the attacks that referees were getting were all part of the game, and I accepted that and embraced that fully going into it. So I'm probably the oddball in this equation because my eyes were wide open and I knew exactly what refereeing would bring, and I absolutely loved it. And I wish I was 15 years younger because I'd still be refereeing. I'd still be running around at as high a level as I could. But right now, the old legs won't perform in the fitness test that we had to do every month. But there are so many referees that haven't come from that sort of background that are now performing at the higher levels of the professional game in the UK, not just in England, an England problem. And they probably do need some sort of protection, to be honest, because it's brutal. It really is brutal. And when Arteta comes out and does what Arteta did, and now you're seeing a club come out and support their manager for doing what he did, I think the tide has turned. I really do think that tide is disappearing and it won't come back because who's going to be next? And the FA is going to come in. They've already asked Arsenal and Arteta to explain themselves, so there's going to be some sort of disciplinary action taken against them. I just think it's now getting too personal because I have heard referenced, it's that referee again. He never gives us anything. Now that's normally a fan's phrase that comes out. But it's now coming out within the professional game. And look, I'm all for better refereeing performances. But at the end of the day, a referee is only as much of a human being as that striker that misses an open goal, as that goalkeeper who fumbles the ball into his own net, that manager who picks a crap team and loses 6-0. I just don't see where the solution is. I really don't. I don't see where that solution is that's going to solve this problem. So, is it a thick rod of iron that the FA and the PGMOL and the Premier League have to start beating players, managers and clubs with? I don't know. I don't see an easy solution, guys. I don't.
What was interesting for me as well, I didn't feel like Arteta attacked the referee on the pitch.
He didn't.
You know what I mean? He attacked the VAR. No. And the VAR isn't a person, I guess. It's a group of referees that are obviously sitting in a box, but he didn't name call anyone. So
he didn't name call anybody, but the referee's there and up front and up centre.
We need to
everybody knows
them,
who he is.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody knows who the VAR referee was. Yeah. Those details are made public. And he's criticising the outcome of those decisions. He's not criticising VAR as a technology. The bee in his bonnet is the fact that goal was allowed to stand by the match officials using VAR. So it was, though indirect, it still was an attack on the match officials on that day. I'll not have anybody try and convince me otherwise.
Yeah, no, but it just it kind of opens the door, doesn't it? If Arteta and Arsenal, I don't know, it's just a slap on the wrist at the end of the day. It kind of opens the door, doesn't it, to all the other clubs and managers that go, well, okay, you know what I mean? So, and you saw Ange and Arteta have a bit of back and forth as well as the two London managers, Arteta coming back and saying, well, whatever I said, I didn't get a card for it, where Ange got carded for whatever he said to the ref during that crazy game the other night. So, I think, if we're going to be serious about it, then we do need to protect.
I mean, that's almost. I don't say it's acceptable in terms of the behaviour, but it's acceptable from a referee that if you make contentious decisions, people will complain, people will whinge, people will moan, and that's why dissent is written in the laws of the game, because the referee can take action against that. Yeah. What I'm fearful of is what is now happening post-match. And it's almost becoming a free-for-all because there isn't anything in place other than this financial slap on the wrist that the FA come up with that's going to stop managers from building on what Arteta's done, to stop football clubs now publicly coming out and really having a pop of individuals that are there. And are there for the right reason. I don't know a single referee, I've never known in my life a single referee who's refereeing to cause trouble, to be unfair on another team. You know, when I was coming through the ranks, and you know, me and Ted have joked about the Stockton Sunday League, I always remember pulling in, there was a team of my best mates who I used to play for. I then started refereeing, so you know, that's where my focus was. When they used to walk past the open door of the referee's changing room in the ground that they were playing at, and they'd look in and they'd see me, they'd just all start shaking their heads, because they used to say I'd go out of my way to prove I was being neutral, so I would actually referee against them just to prove my neutrality. You know, that's the way it works in refereeing. There's nobody I know that goes out with an agenda. I could be wrong, but I've never ever met anybody at any level as a referee who goes into a game with an agenda. Yeah. Other than you know, this team, you know, this team are really physical. I've got to be on my game from the start just to make sure it doesn't get out of hand. That isn't an agenda. That is a strategy.
One thing that springs to mind for me, though, is the Mike Dean comments.
Sorry, right, go on.
No, you're right. Remember Mike Dean coming out and saying that he didn't want his mate to get in trouble in that Tottenham game against Chelsea, and he said that, you know, he kind of protected him through the VAR. That keeps springing to my mind as well with some of these decisions, though, and I think when you got former referees coming out and saying stuff like that, it kind of undermines the whole system as well. So when you've got, you know,
that was wrong.
Got him saying, you know, I mean, him sitting there going, you know, I was in the VAR box. I could see how hostile the game was. I wasn't going to make a contentious decision through VAR because I wanted to protect my mate who was on the pitch, you know, the referee. And that sort of, those comments, people don't forget those. Do you know what I mean? And then it becomes a bit more sort of, I guess, farcical, doesn't it? When those decisions come down, it's like, oh, he's just protecting his mate on the pitch again. Do you know what I mean? And that's a former referee.
Look at the mad Spurs Chelsea game the other night. Absolutely crazy. I mean, you could pour a bit more fuel on there, and it really would have gone up in flames. You know, at 4-1 with 30 seconds to go, let's just say Son. I was going to say Son. Let's reverse it. Let's throw it the other way around. Let's just say the Tottenham keeper pulls an Arsenal player down in the penalty area. It's got to be a red card. It was denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity. Whatever. You know, would you expect the referee to show the red card in a situation like that? You know, people would say there's an argument. It's probably wrong to make this argument in the Premier League, but certainly outside of the Premier League and the lower down you go, it's like, okay, this team's losing 6-0. Do you really have to send somebody off in the last minute when the game's done and dusted? Yeah. Well, yes, you do, because it's black and white, and that's what the laws of the game state, and that's where that's where Mike Dean let himself down. If VAR would have corrected an obvious error, then it should have been used. But I get where he's coming from, because there is so much pressure on referees, and there are so many situations in a game that you're in charge. That's your number one. Okay, number one priority, safety of players. Number two priority, controlling the game. Because if it gets out of hand, you can have, you know, mass brawls. You can have players getting seriously injured because of mass brawls. So you've got to control the game. So I get it. I've been on the sideline when referees have said to me, only get involved if you as a referee would want that decision. And it does make you think, if this game is highly charged, if there's the slightest risk because of the emotions, the intensity of the game, the ferocity of the rivalry in this game, and it's reaching boiling point, and there's a decision that you could make that would absolutely drop the referee in it because you know it's going to cause absolute mayhem, would you want to give him it? Now, look, if it's subjective, you'd say no. You wouldn't give him it because you're trying to help your mate on the pitch. But if it's black and white and it has to be given under the laws of the game, you've got to do it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I just think it's incredible. It's a crazy system.
I think we agree on it, lads. I think we agree on it 100%. It's always good to have a referee kind of story for Dave to get his teeth into, isn't it?
God, I'll be called Referee Dad next.
I'll tell you what, that Tottenham game though was a referee. If you're going to play anything at the referee's training, whatever it is, the seminar, then play that game because I thought Michael Oliver did a great job. Games, yeah, it was chaos, though, wasn't it?
Even when he gave Ange... Did you see how he gave Ange the yellow card? He went over, put his arm around him, and explained and said, I've got to do this. Da, 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 da. There you go, there's your yellow card. That was to diffuse the situation. Because if he'd have just run up robot-like some of the referees will, they hide behind their cards. You run up to Ange at the sideline and you thrust a yellow card under his nose. That's going to inflame the situation. So the way Michael Oliver dealt with it was, quick arm pat on the back, quick explanation. Then he showed the yellow card. It was almost accepted at that point without. I thought he had a decent job, and it was. Most of the yellow cards, I can't say them all because I didn't watch all the game, but most of the yellow cards were warranted, and you could see a reluctance at times for him to give them, but he had to. Yeah. No, I think he handled it well. It was just a crazy, crazy game. Oh my goodness. He earned his paycheck on that day. Anyway, we've talked too much refereeing. We're out of time now.
No, look at us go.
Well, mate, it's been a good.
Are you going to blow the whistle, Dave?
Mate, I'll tell you, if I bring my whistle in, you'll know about it.
Really good show today, lads. Good chat.
That was good. It was lovely.
Oh, hang on.
All the lads back in the shop.
He's come in.
Come on in. Better late than never. How we doing, chaps?
Here he
Good,
is.
mate. Good to see you, mate.
He always comes in and then costs me like 3 minutes of playing a song, but there you go.
No, I'll say nothing then this morning. Just hello, good morning.
Hope you're well,
great
mate.
show, lads.
Hope you're well.
Yeah, great.
I tell you what, it was so good, we'll do it all again tomorrow, fellas.
Why not? Do it, lads.
All right, see you then. Cheers, bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Lads.
From Yarm to Yerbay, Harrington to Horsley Hill, Swarwell to Silverlink. Steve and Rye, the North East Footy Breakfast.
Right across